G'day folks, this is Raymond Foster. I hope you're doing great. What folk call communism is, at the end of the day, ultimately just anti-whiteism. I simply addressed this individual who was promoting communism. I pointed out that capitalism isn't a problem, and what is being referred to as the problems of capitalism are just symptoms of anti-whiteism. And it's actually a part of the anti-white narrative to ignore the problem and instead blame other things like capitalism. Where does capitalism come from? Western nations. Oh yeah, capitalism is Western, comes from white people, because that's the economy of white nations. So you want to destroy, dismantle capitalism means you literally want to destroy, and you literally admit you want to dismantle white economies. And you have a problem with white people owning things and having abundance and being able to feed their children. And so you say that that's bad and evil and it's capitalism, and you have to dismantle this. You have to destroy this. You have to take away the ability of white parents to feed their children because their children are white. So you want to starve these innocent white children. And you admit it when you say you oppose capitalism. Because we all know capitalism is Western economies, which are the things that allow white children to eat and be fed. So you admit it yourself. If you oppose capitalism, you literally want innocent white children to starve to death, and you make up excuses and lies. You beat around the bush, and you say you just want communism, and you're just dismantling the capitalism and exploitation of workers. These are all called anti-white meme pathogens, which are used to justify white erasure and anti-whiteism. No matter how much they argue the point, they only further establish and prove that we are correct, and that they actually just want to harm innocent white children and white folk in general, because they are anti-white bigots who hate us on the basis of our race. You either just keep going on promoting communism and let the whole world think you're a scumbag and see how much of a scumbag you are, or you go, oh damn, holy crap, that's messed up, I better stop promoting communism and opposing capitalism and support the ability of white parents to feed their children, because all people deserve human rights. All people deserve well-being and the ability to feed their children, including white people. You see, the only people who could possibly disagree with that are psychotic anti-whites who literally want to see white children starve to death. Addressing the anti-white idea of communism in this manner is so successful, all right, that in this situation, as soon as this was pointed out, this anti-white who calls themselves communist decided to block me and delete all my comments. So they must have been aware, all right, of the success of addressing the anti-whiteism folk call communism in this manner. Again, just point out you oppose capitalism, hey? And they always agree with that. And then you just say, well, that's evil. That's evil anti-whiteism if you oppose capitalism. Because capitalism, again, is just the economies of Western folk, which is essentially the ability of Western folk to have property, a roof over their head, and feed their children. So, as long as you make that clear, you just point out, well, actually, what capitalism is white folk owning property and feeding their children. Okay, sweet. So you are saying you are against that. You're saying you actually want white children to starve to death, and you want white people to be robbed of everything they own. And you admit it because you oppose capitalism. So the only way you cannot be wanting, all right, or working towards white erasure promoting the anti-whiteism, anti-white child abuse, etc. The only way to not be promoting the starvation of white children en masse is to not oppose capitalism. Again, because capitalism is children, white children, being fed. So as long as you make that clear, that what is capitalism? Oh, it's our ability to feed our children. So it's really good. It's really good. It's white positive. It's really good. You know, feeding white children is really good. Unless you're a psycho who wants to see white children starve to death. And yeah, this anti-white understood so well how bad they looked and how good I looked and how easily their anti-white lies of communism were exposed. So they had to quickly delete, block me, etc. Okay? So, super successful, can't fail, and it stops all this, you know, nonsensical back and forth and trying to argue against communism and all, which never works. People have tried this for decades and decades, and nobody can argue against communism, okay? Because the way that they argue these anti-white meme pathogens to establish this anti-white ideology of communism is obviously done in a way in which they paint themselves as heroes fighting against exploitation and, you know, class division and oppression and all of this nonsense. So they paint it as a good thing, so you can't argue against communism itself because it's painted as a good thing, so that makes you a baddie, which then only further justifies anti-whiteism. Okay? Because they can point at you as a further justification now. So, clearly, this is the only sensible way to address the anti-whiteism known as communism. To simply make that point very clear. Capitalism is good. Capitalism equals, you can break it down, make it this simple. Capitalism equals white children being fed and white people having property, owning their property, not being slaves with nothing. So that means capitalism is good unless you're an anti-white and you want to see white folk enslaved, all of their property stolen from them, and their children starved to death. So it makes it very clear for any onlooker, any vague, etc., that we clearly aren't baddies opposing the good communism. We are the good guys who just want innocent children to be able to eat and innocent people not to be robbed of all their property. And so as soon as you frame it in this way, anyone who supports communism, therefore is opposed to capitalism, is automatically stereotyping themselves, putting themselves in that category, in that box, as a psycho anti-white who literally wants to see white children starve to death. It's not a good place to be if you want to be perceived as a righteous individual. So, perfect, works every time, can't fail. Try it yourself and let us know how it goes. Take it easy.